What if the F1 2020 game had realistic dirty air? So for this video then, once again, I have been tinkering with the settings on the back end of the F1 2020 game. And this one, we're going to try and create realistic dirty air. Now, normally in this game, you do have the dirty air effect. It's just a lot weaker than what it is in real life. So normally in the game, you only lose about 15% or so of downforce when you're very close to the car ahead. But now I've increased that to 35%. So I've more than doubled the effect of the dirty air. And also for drag, normally you only gain about 10% drag reduction when you're very close to the car ahead. I've increased that to about 30% to kind of balance out the increase in the dirty air effect. So here we go. Then on the left you have got that increased dirty air effect. On the right you have got the completely normal game. So we're going to go on board with Red Bull, start from the very back of the grid. I let all the cars get away into the turn one so I don't get too much of a OP start and just fly up the inside. And you see straight away I'm struggling to get past the Williams because I just couldn't get out that dirty air, just understeering straight into them and just diving up the inside there of the Alfa Romeo. And it looks like at the moment I'm actually in the same position on both screens, but you see on the left side having the confidence to dive up the inside nice and early. On the on the left hand side, not quite having the confidence to do just that. Because, I mean, when you dive up the inside, of course, what you're doing is diving into the car ahead's dirty air. So when you're braking late and diving, not only do you lose downforce on the actual brakes themselves, but also once you get there, you haven't got as much grip. So a lot less confidence. I am also running simulation damage for this one, and that's just to make sure I'm a bit sort of cautious and don't go for too much ridiculous moves, because obviously without damage you can just dive up the inside and just do stupid moves. But I didn't want that. I want this to be a bit more of a realism test, to see what the game would be like and how it would play with more realistic dirty air effect. Now obviously Codemasters haven't included a fully realistic dirty air effect because that's effectively a wish list, isn't it? I mean, F1 is working hard to try and reduce the dirty air effect and reduce the downforce that you lose when you follow another car. So the game is basically taking the opportunity to go, well, we don't have to make that realistic. We can put that to whatever we want. So they've kind of reduced it hugely down to probably roughly what the levels will be in 2022 when the new rules come in. Because Ross Brawn, I think it was about last year or so, in 2019, he did say that at the moment, apparently you lose half of downforce when you're very close to the car in front. Of course, I've not gone quite that high on the figures. I've just sort of put some figures in and tried it a few times and tried to make it look what we sort of see in real life roughly. But he said that that's going to go down to about 10% in 2022, which is more or less what this game runs out. I mean, 15% is what it runs out by default. But yeah, so we've got up to 35%, which is less than what Ross Brawn quoted. But I did try it on 50%, and actually it was just way too much. I don't know if that's a foible in the game, or if that's, perhaps Ross Brawn's figures aren't quite right. I'm not too sure. But I will say once again, this game has handled this really, really well. I mean, as always, the sort of core function of this game is very, very good. It's actually set up very well. I mean, not perfectly. It's no iRacing simulator, but it's set up really well in general. So really all I've done here is increased a couple of numbers, and here we go. We've got the right effects. So here we go then, coming on to the next lap. We're just absolutely lunging at Lando Norris on the left-hand side there with the increased dirty air effect and not putting the move off, and that's because I had to. I just couldn't get close enough to him, and that's obviously the big difference is you can't get anywhere near as close to the car ahead comfortably. And of course I've gone in Red Bull on purpose here because it's a little bit slow in a straight line compared to some of the other cars, but it has got an incredible amount of downforce, so it should be ahead of these cars. And we often see Alex Albon struggling, don't need to come through the field when he has a dodgy qualifying or doesn't have a good enough start. So this is quite a good kind of comparison to what he's up against, really. And you see on the right hand side now, I'm actually up into P9. On the left hand side there, with the increased dirty air effect, I'm now in P12. So we had a very similar start. But now we're kind of settling into the race and everyone's actually at full speed rather than kind of going quite slow because of the start. I'm really starting to struggle and I just can't get past Lando Norris. And he's got the Renault engine, of course. We've got the Honda engine. They've got very similar performance, or actually identical performance in this game. And of course, on the right-hand side, yeah, I'm up against a Mercedes now, and actually, or Mercedes engine, I should say. And actually, look, really close to Lance Stroll. And am I going to get past him here? Let's have a look. So, of course, I don't get as much drag reduction when I'm following a car. I'm going up to overtake ERS on both sides, up to rich fuel as well, trying to get as much as I can. DRS is wide open. See on the right hand side there, I'm not actually able to close in on Lance Stroll because he's also got the DRS effect, so not quite able to get it. I do go for a really late lunge and just about make that work. On the left hand side, just wasn't able to make that work. I just couldn't get close enough because I was just that much further back off the previous corner. So this is the results then of that particular test, and interestingly for me, the field spread was actually, if anything, less, which really did surprise me. I thought the field spread would be a lot higher, but for whatever reason in this test, the field spread was actually less with increased dirty air effect. But of course, you can see that we were 3 positions worse off at the end of that 5-lap race. So a fairly substantial difference. And actually, I found it a lot more fun. It really added to a huge challenge to driving against other cars in this game, particularly the AI. Now, we're going to get now to a 25% race in the Mercedes car starting from the back of the grid. So this is a bit more of a sort of, I guess, a different test because we've got a much better engine, so we should be able to power past the cars a lot easier. And, you know, a Red Bull, you can understand why they might struggle to get through the traffic if they started from the back. But, of course, the Mercedes, you'd probably expect them to be, I mean, probably on the podium, let's be honest. The Mercedes is such an OP car this year. I'm just going to pause the video very quickly there to ask you to please subscribe if you are enjoying this video. It does really help a channel my size. We're closing on 30k subs now, which is mad. We started at 20k just a couple of months ago, so the growth's been insane. Please help keep that up. Let's get back to the video. But of course, they're good straight line speeds. Having a normal start this time then, and just seeing if we can get up the inside of Kevin Magnussen. There we go. Once again, we are running sim damage in this particular test, so we do need to be a little bit careful our front when we can't just go charging in willy-nilly. So up to P17 after the start. Then you see there just understeering, almost hitting Kimi Räikkönen, having to back right out of it. That would not happen at all with the base game. Going to try and dive the inside of him here. We know Kimi Räikkönen is quite generous, so he's given us a position there. I'm going to actually get through up to P16, and once again just running it there on the outside. AI brake very early. When I should dive the inside of Antonio Giovinazzi. Now I will say, of course, you know, the only things I have changed, as I said, is the downforce loss behind the car and the drag reduction behind the car. We've increased that. But I've not changed anything else. Now, obviously, that includes the AI. I'm obviously not able to code the AI any better than what Codemasters can do, and I also actually haven't got access to any of those files. But anyway, so the AI actually obviously aren't adapted to this. Now, once again, they do adapt very, very well to these changing variables that I'm throwing at them. So they don't go off the track. They do handle it well. They just back off when they need to. But, of course, if you were to decide on this effect in the game, you'd also tweak the AI to work a little bit better for them. Because so they're not perfect, and you'll see a little later on in this video how sometimes when they get in the dirty air, that they sort of panic a bit and back off more than they need to. So, of course, they're a little bit slower than they otherwise could be, so they could put a better challenge in there, just get a huge amount of oversteer there on the exit, and that was, again, because of the dirty air effect. I just didn't have the downforce on the rear to be able to get my foot down. Now, here we go. This is, you're now seeing the effect of the drag reduction. See, now that AlphaTauri up the outside there was able to pull level with us because he was in the slipstream of Daniel Kvyat, and we were not. So skipping ahead down then to lap 2, so just a little bit later on in that very same lap. Interesting, Lewis Hamilton actually retires from the race. That's quite handy for this test. I'm going to dive up the inside of Daniel Kvyat there. We were close enough through that last turn. Of course, you know, Mercedes against AlphaTauri, we're always going to have more grip even with the loss when following another car. On to lap 3 now. Lando Norris is up next. Going to try and dive the inside, and once again, he was quite aggressive to defend there. And I do really find that this mod makes the racing in general more realistic. Now, I know that sounds like an obvious thing to say, but you saw there the AI coming over very late in the straight, and we actually really had to dive up his inside to get anywhere near him. Once again, here we're seeing the AI race. We're going to try and get on the outside of Ocon if we can, and do manage to do that because we managed to avoid the dirty air of Carlos Sainz. Now, of course, in real life, once again, maybe you adapt the AI, because in real life they would run you out of room there, and they would, you know, use that dirty air effect and just wash out wide, and you wouldn't even try it on the outside because you know it's not going to work. Whereas in this game, I knew that he was going to give me room. Once again, there, Sainz defending late, and that is what you see in real life, isn't it? In this game, normally you overtake halfway down the straight because you've already got close enough to them. You're going to use overtake ERS. They might not be using it. You're going to open the DRS, and you know you get alongside them by halfway down the straight, so they don't really defend, and when they do, it's a little bit pointless. But in this, just like in real life, the overspeed is at the end of the straight because you need the straight to be able to catch up to them. It's you know, that 500 meters or whatever the DRS is open for with the slipstream, that is what you need to get close to them. And then you finally get at the end of the straight, end up with an overspeed of, you know, maybe 20 kilometers an hour or something. So that is where the overtakes happen, and that is where the AI defend well, because they do really squeeze you over, and you really have to be quite aggressive if you want to go up the inside. Again, just like real life, and I'm sure you can adapt the AI to be a bit better again. So Vettel here is going to squeeze over, but we know we've got enough overspeed here to go on his outside. He did have DRS, but we had enough slipstream on there to just fly around his outside. Now, I will say, I think I made either the slipstream effect a little bit too powerful, or the DRS is a little bit too powerful with this. I'll get onto that in just a moment, because we got on the pit exit here, having pit for mediums, and just being a bit cautious there. Once again, we probably could have squeezed them out there, but, you know, realistically, I want to have a good video here, and also, you know, I am trying to be cautious with my front wing, and look how much I had to back off there. That corner can be completely flat in the Mercedes, with a double dirty air effect from the car's head. I had to back right off there, and really, really lift the throttle. So anyway, coming up to Charles Leclerc now, coming up the inside of him here, going to try and avoid the dirty air effect as much as I can, but nope, not quite managed to make it. And yeah, I mentioned that I think there's a little bit too much, you're a bit too quick in a straight line. So once you've got DRS and once you're within a second of the car ahead, the overtake's actually pretty easy, and we did see that just last weekend, didn't we, at Portimao in Portugal, that actually the DRS was a bit too powerful, and I think that's probably what it is. you know, in my testing for the, you know, without DRS, it seemed to be about right from what we experience in real life. But with DRS, it is just a little bit too powerful. Now, again, obviously that's because it's not been adapted for this. You know, again, I didn't want to change too many variables because I'm sure I could make a realism mod where everything is just more realistic, but we're trying to isolate certain variables here, and obviously this one we're trying to do the dirty air. So if I start messing with DRS as well, it just becomes, there's kind of too many variables. You need some fixed variables in terms of the kind of base game to get a good test. So we didn't have to do it, and here we go. This is a good example here. So we're not actually even using the overtake ERS here. We're going to just fly around the outside. Daniel Ricciardo, no problem whatsoever, way past him. Now, obviously, I've used the Spanish circuit, Barcelona. We actually get hit by him there. I've used Barcelona, obviously, because there's not known for its overtaking at all around Barcelona. So I've used a track where you struggle. And look at that. Look how much Daniel Ricciardo had to back off there. And that is the AI there not being adapted very well to this mod. But yeah, I'm pretty sure the DRS is just a bit too powerful. So as soon as you get DRS, of course, this game normally, the power of the DRS is designed to not actually have that much drag reduction. So when you follow a car, you only get 10% drag reduction plus another, I can't remember what it is off the top of my head. I feel like it's around 15% or so drag reduction on the rear wing when you got DRS wide open. So that is just too powerful. The two combined are too powerful. Of course, you know, they've done that because of the variables they've decided, and we've changed those variables and kind of messed with the balance. But beyond that, I do think this is quite realistic, you know, just sort of looking at it. So here we go, Alex Albon. This is a much better test because Alex Albon has got the same downforce as us. The Mercedes and Red Bull cars are pretty much identical in terms of chassis, but we're just not able to get close to him on this lap. Okay, we're closing in now. We're half a second away, but this is pretty much as close as we're able to get because we just can't get close through some of the corners. We're really struggling again here in the dirty air, just not able to get close in half a second, whereas I closed in on him easily a second a lap to catch up to him. And then I've ended up actually, you know, getting to him and now struggling to overtake him despite having a car that's quite a bit quicker in a straight line. Half a second back now, and again, I think the overpowered DRS is going to enable us to get fast quite comfortably. So we're not even going to use overtake ERS here, I don't think, because we look like we're going to close in on them well enough. And here we go, slipstream and DRS, nice and powerful. He goes, does defend, squeezes us right to the grass, actually. And once again, that is the better racing. It's actually better racing. And I tell you what, I love this mod. This actually might be one of the most favourite mods I've done, and I really do think Codemasters should integrate this into the real game. Now, I understand why they haven't, because, you know, they've technically used their wish list and gone, well, we don't need perfectly real dirty air, so let's create an effect with less. It's also more, of course, approachable to the casual player when the dirty air effect isn't really strong, but actually it really, really improves the racing with this dirty air effect. It stops you being able to come from the back and just fire your way through the field easy peasy just because you're quicker. It makes it a real challenge to get past cars. It improves the actual racing because you catch them up with overspeed at the end of the straight, and you do sometimes really have to lunge to make the move. It's not just a case of, you know, halfway down the straight, I'm alongside you, and all I'll have to do is outbrake you by a little bit and I'm through easy peasy. It's very much a kind of end of the straight last minute lunge. So I'd really enjoy this mod. Let me know if you like this video, guys. Don't forget to subscribe if you're new, and I thank you for watching. Bye bye.